Yeah.
Happy Friday.
All right, everyone. Welcome once again to the Manufacturing E-Commerce Success Series. I'm one of your hosts, Damon Pistolka, with my friend Kurt Anderson. This is just a great time because, Kurt and I saw each other a couple weeks ago. We were able to go out hiking. We saw Pete Alexander. We were walking with the eagles and the otters and the seals up in the Pacific Northwest. It was freaking awesome. And then Kurt takes me to a client that had an incredible place. Because if anyone knows me, watch my Instagram, A, I like to drink beer once in a while, and B, I can eat with the best of them. So we had a great time doing that. I just want to say thanks to that, Kurt. But today I'm so excited for our guest. Let's get it started. Kurt, take it away, man.
Absolutely. How's my guys? I'm in the witness protection program, so I can't tell you where I'm at today. So how's my audio? I'm like hanging out in a hotel room, so making sure
you look good and you sound good, Kurt.
All right, perfect. I have a clean shave today. I've got this crazy light. So guys, happy Friday. Welcome. We are absolutely thrilled. I've been on the West Coast for the past couple of weeks, hanging with my buddy Damon. I'm down in California today. So, guys, we have an amazing, incredible guest. This is such a thrill. Probably doesn't need an introduction, but we'll do it anyway. Our dear friend, Steve Rice. He's right in between the middle of us. Damon.
Yep.
Right smack in Oregon. Steve, welcome. Happy Friday, and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me on. Kind of like John Oliver, he's in the white room. They put me in a green room years ago, and I haven't been let out. So.
There you
Maybe
go.
Someday I'll be a guest on the Colbert Show.
Well, this is awesome. I want to give a big shout out and happy Friday, everybody. Our friends in Wisconsin, Greg, Kevin, Chris. Good afternoon to Chris. Gail, thank you, everybody. Val, thank you guys for joining us. Steve, I want to kick things off real quick. You have a fascinating background. Can you tell us was your father a professional fisherman of some type, or can you tell us a little bit about this background? Guys,
yeah, it's awesome.
Sort of, yeah. I'll try and keep it short because I know we don't have a lot of time because I could spend about an hour on it. But my father was the managing editor of Western Outdoor News, Western Bass, U.S. Bass, all the way back into the 60s. And so he's actually one of the people who helped invent bass fishing as a sport. I know that sounds weird, but there's pretty much like 10, 20 guys back in 1963 who started putting together tournaments. And the guys, Ray Scott, who started BASS, Bob Cobb, those folks, and the folks on the West Coast, my dad was one of the West Coast guys, they all worked together to create the tournament circuit. So I grew up driving around the United States going bass fishing. And if you're into bass fishing and you name any famous bass fisherman from the 70s or 80s, I probably fished in the back of the boat with them. The good part is I am a pretty good fisherman. You can put me anywhere with any kind of rod, any technique, and I know how to read water, whatever. The bad news is I was outfished every day of my life because it didn't matter how good I was. The guy in the front of the boat was better, including my dad. To go from birth to maybe the teens, when I started figuring out my own passions, I actually was a fishing guide in Alaska for a couple of years. And then in Oregon, the outdoors was a big thing for me, rock climbing. I worked at REI. I became a assistant manager of an outdoor store. I was the head buyer for all the hard goods. I was a rock climbing and mountaineering instructor. And so I have these lives, and somewhere in there, I like to say, I got a college degree, and I have the dubious distinction of being a fine arts major who got a sociology degree from a pre-med university, which is all true. So through basically working in the outdoor industry as a buyer and a manager, and eventually the owner of an outdoor store, I became connected with most people in the Pacific Northwest who are in the specialty outdoor retail industry, especially sales reps, because basically in the 90s, we were all dirtbag climbers together, and they were driving around in their pickup truck trying to sell this new brand called Arc'teryx, or, this new thing called Mountain Hardware that no one ever heard of.
Yeah.
So as we've progressed, over the years, 30 years later, a lot of those now own the sales rep companies. They're executives in CPG companies, and especially outdoor retail, which is a big place in my heart for that. So Patagonia, think of that world, the people who are pushing organic cotton and pushing better business practices and greening of supply chains and circular economy thinking. And so, so that's the world that I live in. That's exciting. So now I basically I have a technology company that helps companies like that choose and implement wise technology choices. Plus, I have leadership stuff that I do. The globally conscious leader is a really cool thing that I'm working on right now. So, that's the short version.
That's awesome. And Don from Alaska just came on. Don, you just missed a great intro. He owns a fishing lure company. The two of you need to connect at the tables after. So Don, Steve grew up with a professional fisherman father, traveled all over the country, and was asked a fishing guide in Alaska. So you two need to connect. John in New Jersey, welcome, my friend. Happy Friday to you. So Steve, you're a longtime e-commerce guy. You go back, I think, believe it or not, we're the same age. You look 10 years younger than me, but we're around the same age. Longtime e-commerce guy. Now you have an amazing company called Dotcomjungle. Do I have that correct?
That is correct.
What an amazing! I love the name. Can you tell just where did you come up with that name? I'm dying to know.
My wife is the one who came up with that.
Oh, all right. Bless her.
And yeah, she's brilliant. And it's one of those names that I've had, huge advertising agencies come to me and say, that's stupid. You need to change your name because nobody knows what it means. And to my mind, I think this is the greatest name because it gives you a sense of where we work and I get to define it. And frankly, it's changed over the years. And partially because I didn't really know how to run my own business 20 years ago. And so I was doing all the wrong things. 12 years ago, I took on a partner who changed the way I thought about myself and the value offering I give to companies and basically helped me realize that I was underserving the community with the skill set that I have. And that skill set really is in looking at all the technology pieces from an overview, 10,000 foot, technical architect overview, and making the connection between the human experiences on both ends, whether it's the consumer, all the people in the middle, and the people in the business who are using it. And that's really fun for me. And it sort of speaks to the topic. You guys asked for a topic about management by walking around that we can talk about today. And I can tell some pretty fun stories about that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So you have a great tagline. We help you make and implement wise marketing and technology choices. And so with our conversations, I just love how you simplify things. So that was a perfect segue. Let's dig right in. So explain to everybody that's not familiar with it. And hello, Gene in New York, my friend. Happy Friday to you. Thank you for joining us. Share a little bit. What is management by walking around?
Well, excuse me. I'm so excited. I'm starting to gulp air. So, it came to me as a joke, and I'm sure somebody else has come up with it, but I was joking with a friend because I don't have an MBA, I have a degree in sociology, go figure. And like I said, I was a fine art major. My claim to fame is I made a piece of art on the UC Irvine campus that it took him about 18 years to eliminate the effects of it. But the sociology degree, management by walking around, is maybe an outshoot of that. I mean, because I'm a very personable person, but I also, in my experience, learned that you don't really know what's going on in your business unless you actually ask the people who are in it. And what happens is we all assume competence for the people that are in our business, or at least let's hope we do. And if you're an executive, let's say you're the owner or the CEO, you have a CMO, CTO, maybe you have people who are acting in multiple capacities, but that you build a hierarchy in your mind. And those of us who are consultants always say, well, you have to have a structure. What's your organizational structure? And we're right. But eventually what you have is silos inside different departments. They're unintentionally made. And then you have mechanisms to break down the silos. And a lot of those mechanisms, I think all of them work okay. The only one that I know of that really works is MBWA. If you have your MBWA, you will know stuff about your business that other people don't. And what I mean by that is, in the typical example of a company with a couple of C-suite executives, they're tasked by maybe there's a leadership team that may or may not include them that says, you need to know what's going on in your area, and you need to be coordinating that with the other area. So, Jane and Bob and Bill and Gwyneth are all going to get together, and then they've got people below them. And it's natural for them to turn around to the people that are reporting to them and say, this is what I need you to report to me. And then those people generally are one layer above the people who are literally doing the work, the hardworking folks in the shipping room, people that are manufacturing products, people that are pre-assembling, the people that are assembling, the people that are boxing. Those are the people that are doing the work, people that are picking up the phone. And so they generally go down and say, if you guys have any trouble, let me know and I'll report it back up the stream. Well, these are people who they're hard workers, they're great human beings, and their job is to get something done. And I'll give you an example of the typical thing that happens. I had a client who we had come in and streamlined all their business processes and all their shipping things. And then they brought on a company that created an infomercial. And part of that infomercial included the decision to bring on a phone company, a telemarketing company who would answer the phone for the infomercial, take those orders. So we basically had a new channel that created a new stream of information that was supposed to come in to the ERP. Well, we are the people who help and make and implement wise technology choices. And we were working with an IT person who was essentially alone. And so this wasn't her challenge. The company had put her in a place where she didn't have any help. But the folks in the finance department said, this is the format that we need stuff to be in. And they got that from us because we said, this is what it needs to look like in order to get it into the ERP. They reported that to the phone company, who double checked it with us. And we said, yeah, that's the correct format. This is the place you put it on the server. We set up all the secure stuff so that could happen safely. And it turned out that the IT person checked it too. She did her job. Well, the shipping guy was having a hard time with the ERP, and no one had ever asked him about what effect this would have on him. And somewhere along the line, he found out that there was a spreadsheet that had all the people from this phone owner company in it. And he, being the person he's a really good person. He's now, head of major departments. He had a job to be done, which was he needed to get that stuff out that day. And it wasn't coming through the ERP the way he needed it to for other reasons, right? So he found that spreadsheet on the server, opened it up, sorted it, did some things, got it so he could import it into WorldShip, and he'd click a button and he'd print out 269 labels for the single product was this infomercial. And then they'd slap together 269 boxes and they'd ship them all. Like they could do it in an hour, maybe less. So it's incredibly efficient, but he had to spend an hour on that spreadsheet. I walked through the business one day because that was what I was paid to do. And I just started asking people what they were doing. And I looked at him and I said, what are you doing? You're actually working on a spreadsheet. And I realized, because I know systems, that what he was doing was the reason other people who I had asked earlier in the day were saying, well, I'm trying to fix this other problem because the stuff from the phone people isn't coming through correctly. Well, the reason the ERP wasn't working is that he found the spreadsheet and was updating it for him to use it correctly. And then the ERP tool that was coming in like every hour and trying to import it was breaking. Oh. And so the finance department went to the phone people and to the IT gal and said, are we getting the right file? And then they came to us and said, are you getting the right file? And we said, yes, because we looked at it, right? The file they sent us was the right sample. Nobody besides me decided to go down to the floor and ask what was going on. So we ended up having a meeting. We had to sort of call a meeting of the different teams that were involved. So we had finance, we had marketing, because they were making promises to the customers that stuff would ship out, the same day, and it wasn't always happening, at least before this gentleman fixed it with his spreadsheet. And we had the CTO and the CFO and the owner. And one of the CFO basically was like, why am I here? Like, this is a waste of my time. I got stuff to do. And we said, just give us a half an hour to talk this through. And as we asked people questions, we knew what was going to be happening in this meeting. When we got to the guy who was building the spreadsheet, he said, yeah, I open the spreadsheet, I do this. And we watched the CFO's eyes light up, and she looked at us, she said, "Isn't this the same spreadsheet that you guys confirmed was put on the server in that location?" And we said, "Yes." She's like, "So this is why I have 3 accountants at the end of every day hand matching 269 orders to our ERP accounting package?" And I said, "Yes." Right? She's like, "Okay, now I know why I'm here." And I said, "Yes, and we can fix this with a couple simple things, but now we know what's going on." So,
yeah. That's such a good example because, even back in my past when I was running companies, it is so valuable for the executives to walk around, for two reasons, really. You're going to see things like this. And it's not just the head of the company that needs to do it, but people need to do it, and in different areas, because you see things that other people that are there every day don't. And that togetherness and working that kind of stuff is so valuable, and you will find and fix things that will just go on unnoticed, robbing your people, making them dissatisfied with their work, and wasting time, money, and energy. That you can fix all those things just by taking the time to talk to people and figure out what's going on. And that's this example, and listen to you talking before, is so cool, because the way you're doing it is making sure that technology works right. Because most times when that technology is implemented, you hit it. It works for the CFO. It works for the people that speak up the loudest. And then there's the masses that get to use it however the hell they got to figure out to use it, because it's what they told they get.
Yeah. Well, and I would actually say that a little different, because we do make sure the technology works right sooner or later, but it all starts with the human element.
Yeah.
And if you work there's leaders at every level of a business, and if you work at any portion of a business where people are doing things below you on the organizational chart, I think you will benefit from taking this approach. And it's as simple as asking 3 questions. What are you doing? What did you expect would happen? And did what you want to happen actually happen? Regardless of what your expectation for hitting the button, should it be doing something else? And that's what's missing from most conversations. It's one thing to go, if you went to that gentleman in the shipping department and said, "Is everything working great?" He'd be like, "Yeah." Is there anything wrong? Do you have any challenges? He'd probably be like, "No, it works fine." But if you actually said, "Well, what are you doing?" "Well, I'm working on it." This is the exact conversation I'm having. "I'm working on a spreadsheet so I can get the stuff into WorldShip." "Really? So why are you working on that spreadsheet?" "Well, because whenever I click the button, it spits out 269 UPS stop signs instead of 269 labels." "Oh, okay." So his expectations weren't being met. And here's what's true if we back up. The job of a company, the leadership team, is to reduce the chaos inside the business in a certain sense, right? And we do, in the end, lean on technology for that. Now, you can implement technology poorly and do bad things to the chaos. You can increase the chaos in your company, and that happens all the time. What's true is that no matter how wonderful your implementation is at any one moment, and let's take the massive implementation of ERP and its connectivity to the website and maybe your other channels like Amazon and eBay and whatnot, that could be beautiful. Guaranteed, chaos will enter that system over time unless you battle that chaos.
Yeah.
So that's all we're talking about is if you stay in touch with what's going on the production floor, whatever you want to call it, you will identify that chaos before it turns into something that will seriously affect your business.
Right. And this is awesome, Steve. And a couple of shout outs. I'm going to give Eric just joined us. Welcome, Eric, Scott, and Chuck. Thank you for stopping by. Chuck has a couple comments, Steve. So Chuck says that back to when we were talking about Dotcomjungle, the jungle is where folks feel like they are when they enter the .com world. And was true 20 years ago. It's still true today, and then Chuck comes back. Yes, Steve, it's about the system augmenting the humans, not the other way around. And what's great, so a couple
Great point.
I've dropped Steve's LinkedIn profile and his website in the chat box. please connect with Steve Rice if you're not already connected. As you can tell, he is just amazing. Steve, as you're talking, what we love is like you're humanizing these issues or these problems and creating solutions. And by creating these solutions for humans with technology, it's like the human first, technology second, as you're describing it.
Human-centered design, like the D school at Stanford.
Design. So we're huge, being that most of us are based on manufacturing. And if you haven't read the book, you need to go out and get it this weekend. The Goal. Dr. Goldratt wrote the book called The Goal back in 1980.
It's right over there.
I've got it right on my phone over here.
Yeah.
He is the master of theory of constraints. And Steve, I know you're a big theory of constraints, TOC. And what's great is, for a shameless little plug, and there's a book out there called Stop Being the Best Kept Secret. Damon, you know that book, don't you?
I've seen it before.
Yeah, and Stop Being the Best Kept Secret, we actually have a chapter, and it's called Using Applying Theory of Constraints to help with your e-commerce strategies. And that's exactly what you do, Steve, is you go and you look for those constraints, those bottlenecks. Talk a little bit, like, say when you enter into a client for the first time, or if you want to share a case study, success story, when you walk in for the first time and you're tackling that theory of constraints, what's your approach? How do you tackle that?
It's all about asking questions. Clients often come to us and they'll say, hey, we have a budget, our CFO, or we sat down with our whole company and we have a budget for X thousands of dollars for a website and we want to pay you to do it because we heard about you. And my favorite thing to do is say, no, and then they get to say, like Cartman's mom on South Park, like, blah, 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 what? Like, we want to give you money. Why are you saying no? I was like, well, let's back up a second and let's learn more about your business. Because, we can be code monkeys and just turn around and throw a website up for you. Right. What we really want to do is actually build the right website for you. And to be honest, I might actually do an assessment and say, you don't need a new website. Maybe I can save you $50,000 or $250,000, depending on the size of the company, because you don't need one.
Yeah.
And so the answer to the question is I insist that we spend a lot of time talking to the company and actually find out who they think their customer is, and talk to the people, the other leaders, even if they're not viewed as leaders in the company. I like to talk to them and talk to the doers at the bottom and actually understand what's going on in the business. Because I don't want to be the guy that implements something that all the people, down below, so to speak, don't use, right? So I was actually talking to a woman named Sneha Kumari, who you guys know.
Yeah, she's on LinkedIn Live commenting there. So
is she?
Yeah,
really?
yeah, she's hitting it hard. We're good.
Cool. I was trying to find a quote from her because she said something to the extent like, technology implementations can't just be an executive decision. Like, you can't expect it to work overnight. It often requires a cultural change. And hence, it's really important for your associates to understand and embrace it for it to be successful. And she's 100% correct in that, right? So, there you go.
Yeah. So now, I know you're a big WordPress, WooCommerce guy. You're an e-commerce expert. So let's take it to the next level. So talk a little bit about, say you identified that they do need a website or they're going to go into e-commerce. Talk a little bit about those next steps, that strategy. And I know you have some extremely powerful solutions that you shared with me that you deliver. Can you talk a little bit about that? As our friend John says, that's why it's called a digital transformation, John. And back to Chris. Chris has read the Goal so many times that her book is flimsy, man. I agree, Chris. It's an awesome book. Alex, we got to get Alex through to the success story, right? Yeah. So talk a little bit about your process with your clients when you are going to marry or make that plunge into e-commerce.
Well, first let me say that for the 20 plus 25 years that we've been doing this, we've always been platform agnostic, and I think you have to be like the world is changing so fast. The technology that's available to us. And so we've built sites in Magento, we built sites in WordPress. We actually built 16 years ago, a plugin that wrapped a Joomla website design around WordPress. I think we were the first people to ever do that, so that you could actually have a blog look like the rest of your site. You wouldn't have to manage the theme, a secondary theme, right? So we've worked in Drupal, OS Commerce, ZenCart, all the derivatives of OS Commerce, in Joomla. Frankly, that was back when the internet was really annoying, because those tools, by the standards of even then, sucked. Can I say sucked? They were horrible.
Yeah.
And I think Magento was the first one where we looked at it and we're like, finally someone's getting it, right? And so we worked in Magento for 8 or 10 years. And when Magento went from 1 to 2, we started looking back at WordPress because they had started developing a shopping cart, WooCommerce. And there's no way 4 years ago that you would take an industrial manufacturer with thousands of products and put them into a WordPress website. It would be crazy.
Yeah.
But you can do that now. And so we're always looking for the highest value. We're really the advocates for our clients. We're not just trying to sell them a particular thing, right? So right now we actually switched to WordPress from Magento because we felt we could develop what we were doing for our clients in WordPress for a lot less money for our clients and be more nimble. And so the tool that you're talking about is we basically built a full manufacturing distribution tool out of WordPress, out of a bunch of plugins that didn't really talk to each other, and we've written our own custom plugins that allow them to work together, and we did it from the human perspective. So the way I like to say it is, if you're a person, you can go order on the web. Like every website should do that if you're just a consumer. If you're a dealer to those consumers and you're, say, running Bob's Bait and Tackle in Eufaula, Alabama, you should be able to log into the same website and get the kind of pricing you need, right? Because you're going to be given maybe a 40% margin plus 2% 60 terms, or maybe you're part of a buy group, so you get an extra 30 days, right?
Yeah.
Likewise, if you're a sales rep and Bob is one of your customers and you're representing the manufacturer, you're an outside sales rep, you should be able to log in and see all those orders. And then usually companies like that will have an internal sales team that's supporting the outside sales reps, maybe has their own set of dealers, maybe even has a separate sales team that works with Home Depot and REI or whoever the big, we call them the box stores. And all those people have different needs. So from a user experience standpoint, with this tool, what I love about it is if you're an inside sales rep and you're at a trade show, you can pop onto the phone service. And I say that because the trade shows are typically very difficult to get on Wi-Fi. You have 15 or maybe 6,000 vendors and 30,000 people all trying to connect. But the phones usually work pretty well. So instead of handing somebody, this is typical in the outdoor industry, you go through your line, you hand them a spreadsheet, or you give them a little thumb drive, and they go home and they have to learn a new spreadsheet that's different from the other manufacturer. And in our case, the clients who use our tool, they can sit down with the client and go, yeah, let's just place the order right here, and you can modify it later if you want. We'll set a date out for March of 2022, and they can literally just do it on a phone or an iPad. And the same experience gets had by everybody that's entering the system. And so that's what we like to do.
Right.
And it's so cool because what you described is exactly the kind of company I ran a number of years ago, that we had outside sales reps, we had internal sales people, we had house accounts, we had outside accounts, we had warranty, and each one of those sales reps, even though an account may not necessarily have been theirs, they would still understand what was in their territory. And we had to do that all manually on the back side of this thing. And we literally had one person, that's what they did every month, keep that data up, and then you don't have the interface, like you said, at the trade shows. We would be at trade shows. We'd be in Chicago at the trade show, the big retail show every year, and never took a single order.
Yeah.
And just think what you could do with your kind of solution and sit there and just be taking orders, putting them out, and it's all set up. The customer didn't really have to do much of anything other than show up at the trade show like they want to do and talk.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and here's the challenge for most industries. It starts with the vendors, somebody like Patagonia or whoever, right? And I'm not bagging on Patagonia because I don't know what they do specifically, but there's a sub industry that supports those companies, and they make these wholesale dealer portals that are designed to somehow connect that vendor and their products to the buyers that are all over the United States, whether it's a buyer for REI that has a whole territory, or it's the Ashland Outdoor Store like I used to own. And the challenge is that there's a couple of them, and there is no industry standard for usability for these things. And so as a buyer, once again, whether you're from a box store or you're from a little mom and pop shop in the town, you have to learn several different systems to even get your job done. And what the companies, the service companies are trying to do something good, right? But what the companies that hire them to do that forget is that we already have a standard operating procedure for web-based portals. It's we every one of us has ordered from a website, and we all know what a good experience looks like, and we know what a bad experience looks like. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel around that and create an additional problem for someone who's already challenged with. They're trying to actually deal with maybe 70 vendors and place something like 250 orders in a 3-week period, 4 ship dates 6 to 12 months from now. Right. So every piece of every tool you make them relearn every 6 months, because you're lucky if they do, it gates their success, and it gates your success. I can't tell you how many conversations. Actually, I can tell you. This last spring, I spoke to no less than a dozen sales reps somewhere around the trade show time, because I was coming to their town. I said, "What are you doing?" And they're like, "I can't even meet you for coffee because now I'm hand entering all the orders from my dealers, because my dealers refuse to use the portal from New Order or one of these other tools that are great tools." They're like, they can't use it. Or we gave them a spreadsheet with macros and stuff, and maybe 5% of the people know what a macro is and have the correct version of Microsoft that it would work on.
Yeah.
And so they're literally doing the job that should be automatic.
Yeah.
And they're like, one of them said, like, I'm starting tomorrow and I'll probably be done on, a week from Thursday.
Oh my.
Right. And this is a sales rep whose job is to sell things. And now he's got like a 14-day period where he's not servicing anybody.
Right.
Not helping anybody. And it's just because the tool was an unwise decision was made around the tool, and they didn't take into account the human element at either end of the spectrum.
Right.
That was a soapbox. Thanks for giving me the time. I'm out.
That's awesome. And Steve, what's great is conversations with you. You talk about like not necessarily even meeting customers where they are, but meeting their customers where they are, or helping them where they need to be. Yes. A lot of us, Damon, we still love to listen to our 8-track players, right? If we could, but we just can't. That technology is not available anymore. We need to move forward and get moving on. So efficiencies, you're taking advantage of a lot of opportunities, bridging gaps, technology, communication, removing silos, removing those constraints. For .com, what do you see for the future for Dotcomjungle, or as we're hopefully coming out of COVID, what direction do you see for manufacturers and for your company, Steve?
Well, that's a great question, Kurt. From the manufacturing standpoint, I think we also have to talk about not just manufacturing, but sales, both direct to consumer and to dealers and whatnot. And I think the main thing is that the habits of every single person in the world have been rewired.
We've changed.
Yeah. Right. And we're going to have a certain percentage that go back to the old way. But really, what COVID did is it speeded up everybody's adoption of whatever technology pieces have been presented to them.
Right.
Yeah.
And if it works, they're not going to go back. So we want to make sure that it does work. So for us, for Dotcomjungle, we're one of those companies, like, we don't take on just anybody, and that's not super special. But we want to make sure that the companies that we work with are ones that sort of get what we do. We get what they do. I definitely have an ethical stance that that we apply to the companies that we bring in, and because of that, my average client retention is over 12 years. I've got people that have been with me for 20, 22 years. In fact, I have one customer who's been with me before my company even began, right? So back in the day, right?
Right.
So, yeah, I think the manufacturers, they know that this digital transformation is happening. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean that word in the sense that all the marketers and the providers like us say, you need to have digital transformation.
Yeah.
I mean that the world is transforming before our eyes. They know it's happening. And there are challenges to be met, and we don't know what all of those even are yet. I mean, just even the idea of blockchain security, I have a feeling in 10 years, like there might be, like the whole entire web is going to be running websites with some sort of underpinning of blockchain security that I don't even understand yet.
Yeah.
So you have to stay on the ball and look for advisors, I think, that are outside your business who can bring you the intelligence that they've learned from other companies. Because frankly, some of the best things I've ever done for company A was something I learned while I was working with company E, and B, C, and D all benefited from it too.
Yeah.
And it's when you're in a business, it's hard not to just look conceptually down at your business and not be looking out. You need people to be looking out, and you need people to bring information in. And go back to the thing, like even with your third-party vendors, you need to be asking questions. Like, why are you doing that? How is that going to get done? A quick example of that is I actually sat as an advisor with a company that was talking with NetSuite, who had flown in 2 very expensive salespeople. And somebody asked, because we needed to, does this integrate with Magento? And the person said, yes, it does. And I said, well, so can you tell me how? And he kind of looked at the other guy and said, I don't know. Do you know? No. Well, why don't you make a phone call? And then we'll keep talking, right? And that was just part of that question. Like, why are you saying that? What do you think you're going to get out of it? We knew what we wanted to get out of it, and that wasn't really the answer. Yes isn't the real answer. It turned out there was a third-party vendor for $30,000 that would do the integration. Right? So, and the salesperson's job is to land the client and worry about pricing later. And if we hadn't have been there, they would have, probably signed a, I don't know, $80,000 to $150,000 contract, and then probably had, that wasn't the only tool that was like that. They probably would have had another $100,000 in add-on fees that they hadn't budgeted for, that they would have had to come up with in the next 2 years, because the salesperson, sold NetSuite to them, and they got stars in their eyes about this great tool that could do everything. When it is a great tool. I'm not bagging on it. Yeah. I am bagging on the salespeople who don't know the capacities or themselves, the people who actually need it. Or if you don't mind.
Or the courage to just say, I don't know, let me get back to you. So I absolutely love it. Yeah. So as we recap, guys, so what I want to do, Steve, so reach out to you again. I've dropped your guys. If you're on, please connect with Steve Rice. What an amazing conversation. And Steve, what I love, high integrity. You come in with strong ethics, and I love what you're saying. Is with this specific example, is having the ability to ask the right questions. And again, shame on this person, not to throw anybody under the bus, but to say yes on something that would drive up the price for that client. So we've talked today about humanizing first, and then providing human solutions with technology. You've talked about removing those constraints, those bottlenecks. We're all huge goal fans. Damon, I saw your post. You've given out 100 copies of that book, guys. If you haven't read it, go out and get The Goal. It's a phenomenal book. Steve, I have your website, I have your LinkedIn profile. Any other thing that you want to share as far as how to reach out to you, how to connect? We're going to jump back to the tables. We're coming into time. Love for you guys to stick around. Don, especially, I'd love for you to meet Steve. Any last parting thoughts that you want to share, Steve, with everybody? Any words of Steve Rice wisdom that you want to share?
Be fearless and be kind.
Be fearless and be kind. Man,
if there's one thing I have that I have, I think, given to my children, and that maybe sets me apart, it's that fearlessness. I'm not afraid to fail. I'm not afraid to look like a dope. I want to ask questions. That's where the fearlessness comes in. And because I don't know. And if you can say I don't know and ask a question, That's fearlessness.
That's half the battle. So again, and I know you're a great dad. We've talked about your kids, and so Steve, what a blessing this has been. What a gift. And again, grew up with a professional fisherman father. You're a fishing guide up in Alaska. You've traveled all over the place. You're just crushing it with e-commerce. Been doing it for decades now. You're a pioneer in many fronts on e-commerce. So guys, reach out to Steve Rice, manufacturing expert. Damon, we have a super exciting program come up this Wednesday in New York.
Yes, we do.
EP. So if there's any manufacturers out there that want to hang out with myself, Damon, Jeffrey Graham, we have a 3-hour manufacturing workshop, B2B sales workshop at the New York MEP at Fuse Hub. So we have that going on this week. So I want to give a shout out there. Damon, why don't you take it away? Steve, thank you so much. You absolutely crushed it today. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your passion. We appreciate you, dude.
Thank you. And I want you to know I appreciate you guys. You're wonderful hosts. It's been a pleasure talking, and I really appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. What an honor. So with everybody, go out and crush it this weekend, last weekend of July for 2021. Damon, take it away, my friend.
All right. Thanks, Kurt. Thanks, Steve. Again, dropping all the words of wisdom on us. We have great people. Yeah, just drop it. We have people on LinkedIn. Thanks so much for watching us on LinkedIn, listening to us, whatever you're doing there. Go, like Kurt says, .comjungle, check out Steve, connect with him, and we're going to drop off here on LinkedIn Live. And if you want to join us here, you can get on Remo. If you look at my post, Kurt's post for the week, you can get on Remo here and talk to our speakers after when we have these events every Friday at 10:30 Pacific. We're all in Pacific now. Right. Kurt's getting used to this, so he's going to have the brutal. He's going to have the brutal realization when he gets home Saturday that how quick Sunday morning comes.
That's right.
But great to see you all today. Thanks so much, Steve. Thanks everyone for attending. I'm dropping